my loves. Welcome to Body Wisdom, your podcast for all things related to nervous system regulation, feeling grounded in your body, and improving your relationships. I'm your host, Courtney Beyer, a holistic occupational therapist and yoga instructor based in Southern California. I am incredibly passionate about helping women connect to their mind, body, and soul to heal from trauma and truly thrive in their lives. If that sounds like you are in the right place. So grab your headphones and let's dive into today's episode. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Body Wisdom Podcast. If you are coming back for another episode, I am so happy to have you back. And if this is your first time here, I am so excited that this happens to be the episode that you are landing on, because this episode is truly so near and dear to my heart and is so much of the why behind my practice and why I feel so called to serve women and coming home to their bodies. And today's episode is going to be all about what I have learned from my grief journey in losing my dad. This has just been a life experience that has changed me in so many ways. Not only has it allowed me to be able to give so much compassion and love to my patients and clients that have gone through similar things and be able to relate with them in a whole new level, but it has also just changed my life, honestly, for the better. And I've been able to find so much compassion and grace for myself and my family and my dad through this experience, and how much it has been able to, at the end of the day, be a positive, good thing, because it all just comes down to how much love there is in my heart, how much love there is in my family's hearts for my dad. And I know that you're going to be able to relate to this episode in so many ways. Maybe you haven't really experienced a major loss in your life, but you have gone through a really life-changing experience, like a traumatic accident, or you know somebody that has gone through a traumatic accident, or maybe you know somebody that has gone through a major loss, and this episode will help you be able to understand them and what they have navigated and gone through on such a deeper level. There's going to be a lot of wisdom in this episode. And as I was sitting down and reflecting all that I wanted to share on this episode today, I was like, how am I going to boil all of this down into three main topics of what I learned from grieving the loss of my dad? But I do feel as though there are so many things that you can take away from grief, but I feel as though the three main things that I have learned all come down to the three topics that I will share later in the episode. Some of you might know, because I have talked about this on Instagram before and not so much in the podcast, but about 3.5 years ago now, which is so crazy that it's already been 3.5 years, I lost my dad to his battle of stage 4 kidney cancer. And it was something that was extremely difficult to move through. My dad and I were very close. I had always grown up being like obsessed with my dad and just loved his grounding energy. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. Am I perfect? No. And I'm not expecting anybody to be perfect, but overall we had a very close bond and close relationship. And his energy, his presence always just made me feel so calm. My mom and dad used to share stories with me about how when I was really young, my dad, he actually loved to do woodworking. And when I was really young, I would just like sit in his workshop with him and just watch him. And honestly, it's because it's not like we were having a conversation or anything, but just being around his energy was something that was really calming to me. I loved watching him in his element, and he really was just the coolest person ever, because he had so many unique hobbies. And he also introduced me to my love for the ocean. He loved scuba diving, and we grew up in Central Ohio. So obviously there was no ocean there, but he made it a point to always take us to the ocean. I'll never forget one of the first times that him and I went together. It was my first time going in a while. And after I jumped into the ocean, like if you scuba dive, it's kind of crazy. You just jump off the back of the boat and look down and you see like the whole ocean beneath you. And that really overwhelmed me. And I started to get a panic attack after going like 10 feet down. I just bolted to the top. And then I just looked down and I saw my dad just right below me, maybe like 3 feet below me. And I instantly was like soothed in my body because of that grounding presence. My dad had always made me feel like he was the rock in my life. And so him and I were very close. And when I was living in Chicago, it was May of 2018. So that was 6 years ago now already. I was talking to my dad and he was telling me, all about his workout classes, how he felt like he was just in the best shape ever. He was just a really healthy guy, always prioritized eating really healthy, getting good sleep. He just prioritized taking care of himself. And we loved talking about how to nurture your body, how to take care of yourself, and how to really thrive in your life. And he was telling me that he felt this bump in his leg, in his thigh. And I have a pretty good radar, especially now being like 10 years into being an OT, of like red flag, you need to go to the hospital. But when he told me that, I was in total denial that anything bad could ever happen to my dad. And so I just was like, oh, you'll be okay. You probably just like pulled a muscle or something. Like you're going to be fine. Luckily, he was like, no, this is not okay. And so he went to the doctor, and immediately the doctor was like, yeah, this is not good. Obviously, I did not feel the bump. I was living 6 hours away at the time. And so I didn't know the extent to what this bump was on his leg or how exactly it looked. After he got a biopsy, MRIs taken, it was found out that he had not only kidney cancer, but stage 4 kidney cancer, and it had metastasized to his bones. And so by the time that I received the news, it was in a phone call from my mom. And I knew that day that he was probably going to be getting answers to the test results. I just remember I called my mom during my lunch break at work because I just had to know what was going on. I was like, okay, this is not going to be good. I really want to know what is going on. And my mom shared the news with me, and I was beyond devastated. I believe actually that was the first week of June in 2018 by the time we got that news. And I went back into work, and I had some really amazing coworkers at the time that just gave me the biggest hug. And when you work in healthcare and one of your coworkers shares a devastating diagnosis like that, it's like, we know, it's like, we know that this is horrible. And of course, there's hope. I know so many people that have thrived with stage 4 cancer for many, many years, but it is something that also realistically we were like, okay, this is not good. So the following 2.5 years, he battled his journey with cancer head on. And it was so inspiring to watch him navigate this. And I'm just choking up right now because even just thinking back to it, it changed my life so much to see my dad go through this like such a champ. He never complained once about the situation that he was in. And all of his nurses and doctors would tell us like, wow, your dad, it's amazing watching him receive this diagnosis and not complain, be extremely patient with himself, and just use this as an opportunity to embolden his faith in God and to choose that he was going to be really strong and he wasn't going to let this circumstance just dictate his life and how he felt. And again, he was like my rock through this situation. And Yeah, it was a journey. That 2.5 years was like in itself something so difficult because you had to hold in your body that there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot that potentially could happen. And so that in itself was a big journey of knowing that there was going to be a lot of tension, a lot of sensations to hold. And I'm going to get into this a little later, but there were lots of times where I wanted to run away, but I kept showing up for my dad and I kept remembering how much he was my rock in life and I wanted to be his rock in this situation as well. So then fast forward to 2020, the end of 2020, and about around Christmas time and going into January of 2021, I thought I was going home to just be with my family for Christmas and New Year's, and I was really excited about it. And as soon as I arrived to Columbus, my dad's health was going extremely rapidly downhill. And we all were kind of panicking because up until then, his scans were looking stable. Everything was good. But then it's like all out of nowhere, he wasn't eating. He was acting a little bit confused, was very lethargic, and we knew something was off. And I know that God brought me back to Columbus at that time for a reason. I was able to be with him by his side through the last part of his life. And that was such a gift that I feel incredibly blessed to have, because I do have friends that have lost their family members in very traumatic ways and they were not able to say bye. And so that was such a gift. I was able to tell my dad exactly how I felt about him and how I was so appreciative of him. And one thing that I will never forget is we were in the car and I was driving him to a doctor's appointment. It was really cold outside. It's Ohio in December. And I'll just never forget. I was driving his car and I was like sobbing, but I was trying to hide it because I never wanted him to see what he was going through and how much pain it was causing. I wanted to be strong for him. And I was sobbing and I told him, after I collected myself, I told him, Dad, I don't know how I'm going to survive in this world without you, because we had some conversations about how he was ready to step into his new life. He was ready to go to heaven. And that was so hard to hear, even though that's honestly kind of cool to be able to sit there with your loved one and hear them say that as they're passing on to their new life. And what he told me will stick with me forever. And he told me, I know that you're not ready to let go, but we're still going to have a connection, a relationship, but it's just going to look different. And I feel that in this moment, just because of how he was presenting and that he was very much halfway in, halfway out of his new life. And I feel like he was maybe already receiving a little bit of peace, knowing that he was being called to his next life. And that gave me so much comfort. And so ultimately, when he did pass away from his earthly body, I was flooded with so much peace and strength to get through the next couple of months. And that is my biggest piece of advice. If you are listening to this episode and you are in the thick of your grief journey and you are feeling that heaviness of grieving the loss of somebody you love, or maybe even thinking about grieving somebody that you love and ultimately their passing, is how much strength you are filled with as they enter their new life. And there's so many things behind that, but that did give me a lot of peace, and it did provide me with the ability to get through the next following months. Now, this has been a journey, a 3.5-year journey. It's continuing to evolve. grief has taught me so many things. It's really taught me, because it's so interesting when you go through a big moment like this, you really see who shows up for you and who doesn't. And that's okay. It allows you to strengthen the bond with people that are desiring to show up for you. And it allows you to move away from people that are just not meant to be on that path for you and with you. So a lot of that happened. And I also learned how to create a lot of boundaries, how to share with people, hey, like, I'm not going to be able to hang out. I'm not going to be able to show up to this. I'm so sorry. I'm navigating this grief journey. And everybody all understood. And it was just such a lesson in how to create boundaries for myself so that I could grieve in peace and be able to be with myself. Because again, like, there was so much temptation to want to run away from it all. Like, I did not want to sit down and feel it. I wanted to go on a trip. I wanted to buy clothes. I wanted to talk and chat with my friends all the time. But when I learned that it's not about running away, but coming back home to yourself, that's when everything really did shift for me. And I was able to take this heartbreaking situation that I navigated and that my family was navigating and learn from it, and to choose to allow it to help me grow, because I knew that the alternative was just picking a life full of distractions, and I did not want that. So we're going to move into a little bit more of the 3 things that I have learned from this journey. So the first thing that grief really taught me is that it will bring you down to your knees if you allow it, and then bring you to your biggest growth chapter. And the reason why I say if you allow it is because, again, if you are noticing that you're distracting yourself, you're disconnecting, you're feeling really dissociated from your body in this time, you're not really going to give yourself space to come down to your knees and feel it all. You will just feel really disconnected from yourself, and you'll wonder why things show up in your life and you feel that you're like really reactive, or you're not present, or you're just kind of struggling in your life. So something that is so helpful is learning how to create space in your body to be able to hold your sadness. Like, you guys, there were so many nights where I would just close my eyes at the end of the day and sob, like, just like from the depths of my soul, and allow myself to feel just how heavy and sad it was that I had lost my dad. I was very grateful knowing that he was at peace and he no longer had to deal with the pain that his earthly body that had cancer was giving him. And now he was at peace. But obviously I was very, very sad. And I did not bypass this step at all. I allowed myself to be in the thick of it for as long as I needed to. I didn't give myself any time limit. I was like, you're going to be here and you're going to feel it all. And it's going to be hard. Like, it's very difficult to face your sadness. It's very difficult to allow yourself the space to just cry and feel the depths of your soul. It's so much easier to just pretend like you're okay, to bury yourself in work, to pick up extra shifts, to pretend like you're not feeling that pain of the loss. But it takes courage to sit with yourself and allow yourself to feel pain, sadness, and more of those really heavy emotions. I will say that the 2.5 years where we knew he had cancer was kind of preparing me for this moment. I think this journey for me was really helpful because it's that 2.5 years prepared me to ultimately say bye. Again, like I mentioned, I have friends who have lost their family members in a traumatic way, and they didn't have the opportunity to say bye. And my heart goes out to them because I know that that's a whole other level of grief. But I had the gift of being really intentional in those 2.5 years, enjoying every conversation that I had with him, never picking fights, and always taking photos with him, just cherishing those memories. And, you know, they're both very difficult situations, but that 2.5 years really taught me how to hold tension and sensation in my body so that ultimately when my dad passed, I was able to hold that sadness. And what was really cool is as I was holding myself in that sadness, people were showing up for me. People were by my side. They were helping me through it all and really helped me just get to that level where I was like, okay, I'm growing from this. I'm learning from this. And I'm so proud of myself for facing this. The second thing that I learned from my grief journey is that as you are grieving and going through a really big loss, your grief is going to magnify some old stuff in your life. So some old stuff that's just no longer working, because you do get triggered much more easily when you're navigating a really difficult experience. And it's going to show you where you still need a little bit of healing and growth. You know, there were times where I was feeling so much pain, especially I'll never forget around the holidays, around Christmas of 2021. So that would have been like a whole year later. And the holidays were so difficult that first time. And I remember just kind of feeling like really reactive over small things. And I was like, okay, it's time to take a look inside, because there's some stuff that I'm avoiding. I'm not processing some things. And it was such a beautiful way to be able to give yourself so much compassion and grace and understanding as you navigate some of these heavy feelings. Like anniversaries can be really difficult when you are grieving. Like for me, Father's Day is tough. We just had Father's Day yesterday, and that is tough. Christmas, my dad's birthday, my birthday, like all of those things are just really difficult. And so when you can, again, create that space to be with yourself and notice some of these things that are coming up for you, give yourself a lot of grace and compassion, you will be launched into a whole new chapter where you will become such a better version of yourself, where you will be able to heal some really old wounds. And if you don't allow your inner 5-year-old to take the driver's seat of your life, because it is tempting. It's tempting to want to project your pain onto others, but it takes courage to instead take a mirror to look inside and to see what parts of you need some tenderness, what parts of you need some love and compassion, and you will be able to navigate this chapter with so much more grace. And the last thing that I wanted to share that grief taught me is to slow down and appreciate the small things in life. The reason why this is so important to me is because when you lose somebody that is so important to you, and I mean, like they have passed away, it's not like it's a breakup or something where you both have moved on to maybe a better things in life, but this is like somebody that you have lost that was extremely special to you, where there is nothing you can do to bring them back. You appreciate the small things in life. You appreciate the birds chirping. You appreciate feeling the sun on your face, the wind blowing in your hair. You will appreciate beautiful things that you see in the world. You appreciate walking down the street and seeing an elderly couple holding hands and just admiring how beautiful love is. And it just has helped me appreciate this life that we have, because we really don't know how long we are going to be here in this world. And our journey here is to enjoy it and to find small ways where we can make an impact on somebody else's life and use all that we have gone through to live a life of purpose and not only love for ourselves, but love for others. Grief has taught me that when you are filling up your own cup, when you're pouring into yourself and making sure that you are resourced, you are nourished in your body, you have so much more to give to others that maybe are going through a hard time, because we all have chapters in our lives that are more difficult than others. Some chapters feel really seamless. They feel really great. Maybe you recently fell in love and you're having the time of your life. Or maybe you are going through a chapter that's really difficult where you're going through a breakup or you're navigating a big loss or you are navigating a scary diagnosis for yourself or a loved one. And it's in these moments where we can appreciate the chapters that are seamless and the chapters that are much more difficult because they are all here to help us grow, to help us learn how to hold and know that we are deeply held in our bodies, that coming back to our body is going to ultimately help us navigate these highs and lows in our life. That it's not about feeling perfect all the time, but it's about being able to create that beautiful capacity in your body so that you can navigate the ups and downs of life, so that you can move away with thinking that something like a quick fix, like adding cold plunging to your routine or adding vitamins, supplements into your daily routine is going to just change you and make you feel amazing. Instead, learning how to regulate your nervous system so that you can move through these difficult chapters in life and look for the small things to enjoy. I was at the beach yesterday with my family and my little nephew he's 5 years old and he's so adorable and he wanted to go to the water to rinse his hand off. So I lifted him up and helped him rinse his hands off. And then he sat on my lap to dry. And as he was eating his little snacks, he was just he calls me Coco. He was like, "Coco, do you want one of these snacks?" And I was speechless because that was just so adorable. And I was just enjoying that moment so much because it was so cute. He is 5 years old and he was offering me part of his snack, which if you know 5-year-olds, that is so generous. And it just was a moment that I was just deeply enjoying and will keep that in my heart forever. I will never forget that. And I am appreciative of going through this grief journey where I know the pain of losing somebody that you love so deeply that you hold on to and you enjoy the memories that you get to experience in this life and know that there is nothing too small that you can't savor. And that is the beauty of life. You guys, thank you so much for bearing with me as I was choked up for the whole episode and for tuning in because I really do feel as though some of you need some encouragement as you are navigating a really difficult chapter, or maybe you just have a lot of questions about as you're going through your grief journey, why you feel the way that you do. Maybe you're wondering, why am I so reactive? Isn't this a wound that I've healed? It's so normal for wounds to come to the surface and things to come to the surface as you're navigating a really intense chapter. And if you're looking for a practice in a community to navigate this with, my membership, Resilient and Resourced, is for you. I'm going to link it in the show notes. This membership is going to be your one-stop shop for all things somatic practices and education on your nervous system so that you can really learn how to regulate your unique nervous system, which is so incredibly important and helpful to do as you navigate these ups and downs in life and just create so much more resiliency in your body. So I hope you all have a beautiful day. Thank you for tuning in, and please let me know how this episode lands with you. Okay, my loves, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really love hearing from you all about how the show resonated with you and would love it if you sent me a DM on Instagram to @herbodywisdom to keep the convo going. If you are loving the show, it would mean so much to me if you left a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next time.